戦争は変わった。一つの時代が終わり、俺たちの戦争は終わった。
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. Verified soldiers carry algorithmic arms, manipulate social influence, AI enhance and regulate their timelines. Memetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. And when the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. See, there's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Crime News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. It is August 3rd, 2026, episode number 963, Artificial ISRAELIGENCE. My name is Gonz, at Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Deceit Films, author of Prophecy Without Panic, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It's Monday. My mouse is dead. Give me one moment as things try to reconnect here. Basil's not here. He had some time machine assignments get changed, and you know how that goes. Sometimes the time police pulls a fast one. You know, they change schedules, and so access to the time machine gets manipulated, and he is unable to make the episode today, which is a bummer because he's been out a lot recently. I mean, I don't think he's done a Canary Cry Clubhouse for 2 weeks now, and that's just unacceptable. You know, we might have to have a conversation. You know, I don't want Basil to start going down that road that Canary Cry Radio went down, that long hiatus, because it's no good. You know, it always ends up with people just losing interest, and we don't want people to lose interest, especially when it comes to Clubhouse. It's an opportunity to call in and have a conversation with Basil and other producers, other listeners out there. So it's a good show. It's a good time to reflect on things, you know, not really necessarily talk about news, but more so the spiritual effects of what's happening today. And I think it's an important show for the community, as we've been through so much together over the many different years that we've gone through all the crazy world events. And here we are, and the world events don't stop. They just keep rolling. It's crazier than ever. My mouse is still dead. What is going on with my mouse? If you listen to the intro, you got the Monday jingle, like inside the intro song. Because, yeah, you know, the technology is very finicky. So let's see. Let me do this. It's Monday. It's Monday. I don't know. That was pretty weak. Monday jingle. It is Monday. It's August 3rd. Let's see what's on the Canary Cry calendar real quick. Oh, we're in a new month. Look at that. We're in the 8th month of the year. There is nothing on the Canary Cry calendar for the 3rd. Yesterday was Friendship Day and 1964 Gulf of Tonkin, which is a great conversation starter for conspiracy skeptics. People say, are there conspiracies that are true? Well, Gulf of Tonkin is brought up quite often as the first part of venturing into conspiracy realms, because during the Vietnam War, we were sold a certain thing, and of course fighting communism and pushing back against these different nations and stuff. But we know now, verified, that the Gulf of Tonkin event was a false flag, and that the entire war was based off of, or at least kicked off from, a false event. And so people will bring up the Gulf of Tonkin as a prime example that conspiracies are true, and it's not a theory, it's one of those true ones. So it's a good primer or introduction if you are new to the conspiracy realms. And then tomorrow, Tuesday, National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. So there you go. Make sure to bake some cookies or something. I've been trying to bake the last couple weeks. It's just been a horrendous experience because I'm trying to do the healthy snacks. I've been told use yogurt in your mix when you make something, or squashed bananas, stuff like that, and it ends up turning into this goo. And I'm realizing baking is a very precise science. If you get the ingredients wrong or the ratios wrong, then it's just an absolute disaster in there. So if anybody has any has any baking tips, drop them in the comments, let me know. Okay, let's see what else. Let me just make sure I got everything out. Text message. We're a little bit late today, of course, because of the solo act over here. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get things running. There's other things going on that grab my attention over the mornings and stuff. So, but I'm happy to be here with you all. By the way, quick update. The Canary Cry News Talk YouTube channel got an email from YouTube, and we were told that we are, let me get the exact language, so just to make sure that I'm not messing up the information here. Basically, they told us that our abilities on YouTube are limited now because of our lack of compliance. I don't even know. Here it is. It says here, YouTube, your channel has lost access to advanced features. Hi, Basil and Gons. To help keep our community safe. They always start with that. We limit some of our more powerful features to channels who have built and maintained a positive channel history or who have provided verification. Okay. I don't think we've done anything. We don't. Maybe there's like one or two F-bombs that have ever happened because of a clip. We don't use bad language on this show. We don't curse on this show. We don't talk about risque. I don't know what constitutes positive channel history, but Canary Cry News Talk has been pretty spotless when it comes to anything, really. We haven't done anything wrong on that channel. Okay, or who have provided verification. Okay, look, my identification is all over all of this stuff, so I'm taking it personal now, YouTube. As of now, your channel doesn't have sufficient channel history. How old is our Canary Cry News Talk channel? Let me just double check on that real quick, because I am curious. Sufficient channel history. Oh, get lost. Okay, so they told us that we've lost access to advanced features. This may have happened because your channel did not follow our community guidelines. Okay, all right, YouTube. We didn't promote propaganda. I'm sorry. We're not complicit to the lie machine, and so therefore we're going to get limited features, which we're not using all these features, so it's whatever. But some of the features include get higher daily limits for live streams, shorts, and video uploads, as if we were getting any kind of limit or a higher daily limits to begin with. I mean, they've been suppressing all of our channels for such a long time. Embed live streams, pin comments. Oh no, we can't pin comments. The one that's really bothersome is you can't hyperlink anything anymore. So I think if you are watching this on the Canary Cry News Talk YouTube channel and you go into the descriptions, you can't click on anything. There's no links available in there anymore. So, I mean, I don't know how many people were using that, but it's a bummer because it's just another step for the people. If there is someone who's like, hey, I want to support the show, I want to go to canarycry.support, looking for a link or something, they jump into the description on YouTube and hey, what's up? I can't click on any of these buttons. So just making it a little bit more difficult. And that is just the name of the game. I'm not surprised whatsoever. This doesn't deter us. It doesn't shake us. It doesn't scare us. I mean, it's a little annoying, but other than that, we keep it pushing. And this is exactly why we do value for value around here. We, we stray from the big advertisers and many different things. There's a reason for it too. And there's a couple stories right off the top here that I think are important. As being a veteran podcast now, starting the show, when was it? 2012 is when we first published Canary Cry Radio, and been publishing blogs and stuff since mid 2011. That's when also Age of Deceit was published, 2011. So we're getting old. We're getting old. It's been 15 years. And in those years, we've gone through a lot of eras of internet. I would say the golden era of YouTube was right in that pocket when Age of Deceit was published, maybe the next 2-3 years following up to 2014. I think by 2015, we started to see some weird things going on with YouTube. There was the big push for flat Earth, which was both, I think, organic and inorganic. The topic itself was interesting, but the way it was pushed in the algorithms was very bizarre. And I think it was part of the culling, the harvest, if you will, harvesting plus battle with YouTube. And of course, the really important thing to understand, if you are a content creator or you want to create content and you want to get out there, don't rely on a platform. You are borrowing digital space if you're posting on X or YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or wherever you're posting content. People think that like, yeah, hey, it's my content. Well, yeah, but you are using a centralized distribution platform to present your content. So unless you are able to independently hold on to your content, then YouTube can shut it down and people won't be able to find you. And we learned it the hard way. And we've been trying to build our email list since then. It hasn't grown too much, but if you are one of those people that are not on the email list, go look for it, canarycry.party, and you'll find the email list. I think we have a little under 3,000 people on that list. And that's not even, well, I guess about 10%, less than, or right about 10% of the 260,000 subscribers we had on YouTube. So it's not everybody, but it's a step, and it's just the kind of necessary things that you got to do if you're going to be a content creator on the internet. You are borrowing all kinds of space. Now, there are technologies that allow you to maintain a level of sovereignty or control over your content. And there are attempts to do this. Of course, Rumble came out and tried to do this, but we know Rumble, if you look at the stock holdings and stuff, the people that own Rumble stock are all the same people. It's State Street, it's BlackRock, it's all these big Wall Street guys. And so we kind of know what the deal is there. They're providing the alternative platform. There's other platforms like Odyssey or BitChute, and some of those, they did okay, but once people got over the other platforms, they tend to just flood back to the big ones, the YouTubes and the TikToks and Instagram or whatever. And I've been thinking long and hard about this and praying about it recently, because I still want to build more of like especially for churches, like a decentralized not a platform, just a place where it becomes like the first step for any content creator who, especially part of the church. I think it's more important for the church, for maybe pastors out there who are publishing content or Bible scholars or whoever, to have ownership over that content. And so if you have an essay or a PDF paper or a YouTube video, or not a YouTube, but a video or even a podcast, you can first publish it through this decentralized network. And so then it's at least yours and you own that content and you timestamp it on a blockchain somewhere. So you have a distributed ledger that keeps that record. And then you can publish it on YouTube and other places or whatever. And over time, that blockchain data can become a source of information if you are looking for something. But, you know, you got to have participation to do that. And most of the time people go with the convenient route until something happens, until they really shut things down. People aren't going to really jump on board. So it's a little bit of a pipe dream right now, but the capabilities are easier than ever to build stuff like that. It just requires a little bit of participation, and that's hard to do. That is difficult to do, especially within the church. They're used to, I don't know, right now, I think a lot of people, I see a lot of people flooding to Patreon Bible studies and other ways to get your biblical content. It's not just YouTube, and YouTube is still there, but there are other ways coming up, and they're all centralized. They're all still centralized platforms. So they are just as susceptible to the censorship and to any kind of blocking, if you will, of that content. So it is what it is. It's going to require some big things for that to change. But in the meantime, I think we are starting to enter the era of going back to physical goods. We've been kind of saying it for a while, but I think we are basically in the era of preserving books. There was a story last week. I don't have it today, but we didn't do it last week and I didn't bring it today. But there's an AI company, I think it's in the UK. They're scanning all these old books and then they're destroying the books. So this is going to start the sort of the cultural meta to preserve and hold on to as many books as possible. And this actually was something it's kind of funny. My wife loves old biblical commentaries. She loves old books. We got packages all the time at the front door, and I'm like, what is this? And it's like some old commentary from, the 1800s or something, biblical commentary. So she's trying to collect all of it. And at first I'm like, we don't have any room for any of this. But then I showed her that article and effectively gave her the green light. I said, okay, go ahead and start buying up your old commentaries or old Bibles and hold on to them, because they're trying to basically burn the books, Fahrenheit 451 in real time. So just keep that in mind, something to do. And, if you're a supply dropper, there might be something there in the future as we continue to bless the people who bless us with your monthly support as supply droppers. So there you go. That's all I'll say about that. Oh, real quick, also, before we jump into stuff, I have this bag here. Hold on, I'm going to rip this bag open. People like bags getting ripped open on screen, right? That's like a thing. People dig it. I don't know. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to open this bag because it contains something important. Here we go. All right, let's see. All right, you guys can hear it. Check out that ASMR. I'm not good with ASMR. Here we go. All right, let's see. It's a t-shirt. It's a couple t-shirts. Oh, yeah. It's the Gons Yarn Company t-shirt. So your t-shirt council members, this is what you're going to get this time. And this is great. I'm going to wear this around. And if anybody asks for my name, I'll just point to my chest. And there's actually a ramen place over here, like, Japanese noodles, and it's called Gonzo. And they serve this beer called Gonzo. And I'm like, I should just drop my driver's license and expect free food for life for stealing my name for a restaurant name. But anyway, thank you to all the producers who are part of the T-shirt Council and everybody who makes that happen. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool process. If you want to learn more about any of that stuff, supply with the everyday man or woman, suggesting that, hey, here's one thing you can do with ChatGPT by saying, oh, not only can anybody start a podcast, but just have your AI be your podcast. And all you got to do is connect your calendar, just give us all of the information about your kids, okay? Their soccer game, their school, their birthdays, whatever it is. And then we'll make a podcast about it. And then you can listen to it in the car on the way to school. Good. Hop in the car, Johnny. The AI is going to tell us about you. They're going to talk about you. The robots are going to talk about you today. It's Johnny's birthday today. I mean, what kind of dystopic nonsense is this? I mean, I get it. Okay. I understand. Oh, Lord, help me. I understand Sam Altman trying to make it appealing for AI, for the older generation or the parent generation or something to use it. And this article will actually provide the use case. What Sam Altman is trying to project here into the public consciousness. I think Fortune does a good save on trying to articulate what Sam Altman so dystopically put here. Okay. And then the article goes on. He didn't exactly get ratioed, but several snarky replies got way more likes than the original post. Now, Fortune magazine. Do you know what ratioed means? I don't think they do, because ratioed means that a reply to a post gets more likes than the original post. So if Sam Altman posted about this and somebody replied with a snarky comment and got more likes, then Sam Altman got ratioed by this other individual. That's how it works. That's how ratioing works on the internet. So for Fortune to be like, he didn't exactly get ratioed, and then goes on to talk about how he got ratioed, I don't know. This is a narrative control attempt. But anyone who knows what ratioed means would immediately see the problem with that. He didn't exactly get ratioed, but several snarky replies got way more likes than the original post. Yeah, that's called ratioing. That's called getting ratioed. All right, let me continue. One of the more modulated criticisms said, quote, using AI in place of real human connection is the worst possible use case for it, end quote. But AI execs want busy parents' bucks. And some use cases for AI for family management are gaining more traction than others. In a recent feature, The New Yorker overviewed the myriad of AI is trying to monetize relief from, quote, the cognitive load of domestic admin. You mean parenting? You mean being responsible adults? The cognitive load of domestic admin sounds really dystopic and, I don't know, like technocratic or something. Look, I started off this episode talking about my failures as a baker, okay? I cannot bake. Well, Sam Altman might step in and say, oh, just use AI. Have AI give you your recipes. Yeah, Sam, guess what? When I failed at my, the cookbook version of the baking book, I did turn to AI and I said, well, this didn't work. Let me try AI. And guess what, Sam? It was worse. It was like I was trying to make like healthy brownies and it turned into this spongy goo gross thing that was disgusting. And I wasted some bananas. Okay. So no, AI is not going to help me unload my cognitive load. And I wish it could, because I am not very good in the kitchen. It is an adventure for me in the kitchen. I've actually come a long way in the last few years. Before I had no understanding of what was happening in the kitchen. It was just an absolute disaster. But now, I mean, at least I can throw a meal together. Yet, when it comes to baking, I'm still lacking. But it is a cognitive load for me. I mean, I don't know, every day I'm spending a little bit of my brain juice to make sure that I can feed my family a decent meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And it requires more cognitive load for me to cook something in the kitchen that's not going to poison us than to do a podcast, for example. I've been doing podcasts long enough that I can spin up an episode and I can ramble into a microphone for a few hours and that's no problem. But hey, have me follow a recipe in the kitchen, and that's work. Okay, for me, that's a lot of work. That's some heavy lifting. Okay, that's picking up the cross for me. So when it comes to the cognitive load of domestic admin, this is just normal parenting. AI is not going to necessarily relieve that. Now, if a robot comes in and is cooking my food and it's doing a good job, Sure, but I don't think we're anywhere near doing that. At least at a level where a home robot is trustworthy enough to actually spin up a meal for the family. Okay, a couple bullet points. AI-enabled family support apps include Ollie, Cozy, and Ava, which can pull data from emails and calendars to send family text messages about important daily activities, remember birthdays, oh man, manage shareable lists, and flag deadlines for registration and bills. You know, we often joke anytime, or at least when I'm at church and we're talking about phone numbers and stuff. I was uh, talking with somebody in the church, and they have a couple sons that are teenagers, and he was saying like, yeah, actually, because he had to change phones and carriers and all this stuff, and he said, I actually don't know my son's phone number. And, we did the reminiscing thing where it's like, remember when we used to memorize phone numbers? And it was a big deal, especially if if you send a note to the girl you have a crush on, and then they write back and they have the phone number on there, and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna forget that phone number, and then remember having to call that number, and then the dad answering, and you have to, who am I speaking to? And this is gone, whatever. May I speak to lady? Whatever. That used to be a thing, not anymore. Now people just text message or go on these apps or whatever, which is it's lost its whimsical nature when it comes to young people doing things that are, I don't know, risky, or risk of embarrassment or whatever it might be. That stuff has been removed, and now it's like, should I send a text message or not? Yeah, go ahead, send a text message. It's not a big deal. But remembering birthdays, I get it. If it's you got a bunch of friends and family, you can't remember everyone's birthday. I understand. But especially your family, I don't know. I don't know. With this dwindling population, there's less birthdays that you have to remember. So I don't know why they're trying to offload that cognitive thing there. You should remember your children's birthday, or maybe some close family. And I'll admit, I have a hard time sometimes remembering the exact birthdays of like my in-laws and stuff. But I at least know the month. I got it down to the month. So I don't know. Okay. So anyway, that's just me rambling and complaining. AI enhanced smart calendars like Skylight and Cozilla create shared visuals for all family members to keep them on track, and can also serve as reward trackers and photo albums. Great. They really just want to get their claws into our lives. Allison Stern, the founder of a VC firm focused on mothers as consumers, there it is, ding, 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 big deal, mothers as consumers, recently wrote for Fortune that moms, quote, need outcomes, not interfaces. When AI companies can really solve problems, she argues, they gain entry into the market of 85 million American moms. I mean, you need outcomes, not interfaces. You can say that about anything. I think there's a reason why there hasn't been really an AI platform for pastors, for example. I know some pastors are leveraging AI on their own, maybe to come up with their sermons or whatever, but there hasn't been an application that ubiquitously, every pastor has to use it. And I've heard both arguments when it comes to specifically the pastor argument. I'm curious about it because now with the capabilities of AI, I can make an app for my pastor or other pastors that helps them organize their thoughts, or like put together an outline or something for a sermon. And what they can do is that, they could just talk into a microphone or your phone or whatever, ramble all your thoughts, and then you can have the AI organize it for you. Not necessarily come up with ideas, but at least organize some of the ideas and then pull up the scriptures or whatever it may be. Some of the tedious work there can be done, but I think people are reluctant because it takes away from the actual human touch a little bit. And ultimately, you don't want AI to be coming up with your sermons, especially if you're a pastor. Now, on the other hand, I've heard pastors say, and we've read, I think, stories about this on the show here over the years, where they say, look, a pastor is supposed to be pastoring. They're supposed to be there for the people. They're supposed to be out there talking to the lost, or talking to people who are going through things. They're not necessarily meant to just provide a sermon on Sundays. And I think it depends on the pastor. Some pastors are real hands-on with their community, and they dig into people's lives, and they're there for them, and they're more of like a quasi-psychologist for different people. And, they handhold different community members, or they're visiting hospitals and things, much more hands-on, while other pastors are like, no, I'm focusing just on the message, right? I'm just focused on the sermon on Sundays. And I can see where those two jobs can become overwhelming if you have a community of people hurting and they're going through things and you need to be there for them, but I also need to deliver a message on Sunday. If you can offload some of the messaging stuff, if you're more into the people connections, I can see that being useful or helpful. So it's not all negative when it comes to these tools, but there just hasn't been something that, as Fortune says, provides outcome, not interfaces. I think a lot of these products just provide interfaces and provides more work for the pastors because they got to dig through the results of those AI prompts, and then they have to sit there and it takes them even longer to put together a sermon. Then there's the economics here. Zoom out. Stern noted that mothers make 85% of household purchases and control roughly $2.4 trillion in annual consumer spending in the United States. A recent market analysis for AI in childcare and parenting predicted that the segment will be worth almost $42 billion by 2035. All right, so AI, childcare, and parenting. I don't know, guys. I don't know about childcare and parenting for AI. You're really, at that point, you're literally handing off your kid. We already hand off our kids to TV and YouTube, and we do that too much already, right? And our devices and whatnot. This is the next level of generation screen. It's not just YouTube. It's literally AI giving the child care. Man, can you imagine that generation, a couple generations from now, who a majority of them didn't really grow up with parents. They grew up with AI as like a robot interface or whatever it might be. Like Jetsons, whatever, all these different shows who made it seem cool and fun. Even like Star Wars, you think about R2-D2 and C-3PO. It's like, oh, it'll be fun, they'll be part of the family. I think that's what they want. But man, losing that human time. But that part of the issue, and you can see how the spiritual op is at play here, because most of the time, the reason why a lot of parents are going to be forced to turn to AI for childcare and parenting is not because they necessarily want to. It's usually because they are being forced to, not forced necessarily, but they have to work. Both parents have to work, or if you're a single parent, you have to work to provide for the family. And that's part of the broken economics, the dwindling economics, despite the fact that our president said that we're winning and everything's great and we're in the golden age and all this stuff. More and more people are hurting. Things are getting more expensive and people aren't making enough. There's inflation issues. There's all kinds of economic problems. And people are having to have multiple jobs just to put food on the table of children. And I can see a lot of those parents turning to AI, because at the very least, and this is where you can kind of see the whole op from 1,000-foot view. It's like, all right, are you going to risk dropping off your child at somebody's house who may turn out to be one of them creepy fellas or ladies, or with an AI, where at least you get surveillance of the child? You probably have a camera on the child the whole time. So if they misbehave or something happens, the AI might tell you, and the child will be like, oh, I didn't do that. And then, pull up the video of something, right? I mean, think about the panopticon that's being built there psychologically, like you're always being watched. But from a parent standpoint, it's like, oh, good. We have proof of what happened. But I can see that being more appealing than dropping off your child at some daycare where you don't know the people there. So, man, it becomes so important that the communal aspect becomes more and more important. Local communities, family, even with family, of course, family can be the biggest source of abuse in trauma and stuff like that. So it's not even safe necessarily to leave your own children or whoever with family. But all these options are dwindling, and you can see how those problems are pressuring us to move in this direction, where we feel like we have more control over the situation. So this was a very short article, but I think this is another example of how AI is creating pressure on all the different sectors of society, and it's leading to ultimately a pretty dystopic world where we are relying way too much on AI, whether it be a podcast that summarizes your lives every time you ride to school or something, or literally childcare and parenting, which is clear indication that we as a society are failing to raise up people to be good parents and have actual ethics in childcare and stuff. If you can find that in your own community, great. I think that's the way to go. Now, as sort of an outshoot of this, let me see. Actually, I'm going to switch things around a little bit and go out of order from some of the things here, because Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, obviously, came out and said, this is breaking, Benjamin Netanyahu announces that Israel is on the verge of becoming the world's superpower in artificial intelligence, and that no power on earth can stop them. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, man. With what we know with the military merger between Israel and the United States at the defense level, I know a lot of people have been like, I can't believe you fell for this, Gons. We're already merged. And yeah, I understand that. But I think when there's a bill passing for the NDAA in 2027, and it literally lists how data gets shared in a certain way when it comes to the technology flow between the United States and the nation state of Israel, it's kind of like Five Eyes, but it's even more, it's kind of worse in some ways. When you look into that bill, it's Bill 8800. It's somewhat worse in many ways because of the fact that data is the new oil. When you're starting to talk about sharing data, like population data and all kinds of data. I mean, think about that last article, calendars and people's birthdays and just every intimate thing about people's lives. Then the temptation for control over population becomes ever more present. And since we are leaning more on AI, I mean, think about the implications of that. Like, hey, if we're leaning more and more into AI and Israel, the nation state, is saying we are going to be the dominant force in AI, you can kind of put two and two together as far as who becomes the world power, the next world power, so to speak. And I find it fascinating that this is a topic of conversation, because right now, the modern nation state of Israel, they are a top tier AI ecosystem, at least like commercially, but it's they aren't necessarily like the superpower that they hope to be. They're a small nation. I mean, there's only like 10 million people population. So when it comes to just the sheer numbers of the masses, they're much smaller than something like the United States or China, which maybe they can ride on the backs of something like the United States to get there. But there are a lot of talented people coming out of Israel when it comes to the tech. So there's a high concentration of AI talent. Like if you look at LinkedIn, if you look at some different other statistics about the number of startups in Israel, like tech startups and stuff, and AI startups, and the funding that's going on in Israel. Israel truly is the second Silicon Valley, and it's already been that for a few years. But they're raising billions of dollars, and they're pouring billions of dollars into these companies over there, and they are becoming a force when it comes to the technate, if you will. And so you still have the U.S. up there at the top. You still have China. You still have the U.K. and Canada, but Israel is right behind all those nations, and they specialize in cybersecurity. And for such a small country, they do have, like always, they seem to have an overt influence on a lot of the, not just geopolitics, but now going into the geotechnopolitics, which I think is more and more what we're starting to see with the network state era. The network state will not necessarily be completely different from the nation state. There will be network states that perfectly adopt, or I guess transition from nation state to network state and remain the same. I can picture the modern nation state of Israel being one of those nations just because they're smaller in number, they have supporters worldwide, and they have the technology infrastructure and the economic infrastructure already in place. If you look at some of the bills, the economic bills from like 4 or 5 years ago, Israel's all over our economics already. And it's kind of where a lot of the conspiracy folk started to call out the modern nation state of Israel, that they're like they control things and whatnot. And a lot of people translate that as anti-Semitism. And you know my take on that, because it's much more nuanced than either of those takes necessarily. There's the factual part of it, but then you don't have to like hate every Jewish person because of it. That's not the point. The point is that there is a conflict of interest when it comes to the upkeeping of the constitutional republic of the United States and the special interests of other nations. And the technology question and AI and defense, all these different topics, it blurs those lines of intent. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I think too many people react one way or another, whether you're fully in and back in Zionism or political Zionism, or if you're pushing back against it. We're seeing people go too far in one direction or the other. And we've always been, at least myself, I've been very clear to say that this is a nuanced conversation and there is a narrow road to carry yourself in, especially scripturally. There's a very detailed and high level understanding of how to deal with this topic that not too many people are doing. So Tel Aviv definitely is sort of a new Silicon Valley, and Benjamin Netanyahu coming out and saying this at a time like now when there are tensions with Iran still, and Israel has come out and said that they're not happy with the way the U.S. is negotiating with Iran. Trump is threatening to blow up Iran again. I mean, the rhetoric and all that is just so tiresome. I thought about bringing it to the show today, but I'm not going to. It's just too tiresome in a way. It's just verbal saber rattling, and you can't tell who's telling the truth, and it's all based on loyalties and narratives, and it's just so tiresome. It's just so tiresome. I think, just in the last like 24 hours, I saw Trump say, we're starting new negotiations with Iran. It's like, okay, great. How many times is this like the fifth new negotiation taking place? And they're like, we're not happy with the way they're doing it. And then Israel comes out and says, we're not happy with how the U.S. is dealing with Iran. And then Trump comes out and threatens Iran. And, hey, if we don't come up with the thing by Friday at 4 p.m., I'm going to blow you guys up and all this. We're going to decapitate you, I think was the exact terminology. So we're back to this rhetoric war when it comes to the Iran situation. And we know at this point, even if it's not completely visible, we know that there are other things going on in the background there with that. And it's not about the politicians screaming at each other and pushing out narratives for the public to parrot. It's something else. And we've known that for a long time. So AI is affecting us from our families to the nation state. And we warned you. We called it. I think it's appropriate to remember that for most of the world, AI wasn't a topic to even consider 10 years ago. If you're somebody who's been with us for a long time, we've been talking about AI as like the beast system, and we've been talking about the problems that may arise with AI and stuff like that for years and years and years. So now that it's happening, it's kind of like, yeah, we've been talking about it for years and years. But for the majority of people, they didn't think. You talk to a lot of people 10 years ago and you bring up AI and they're like, oh, that's years. That might not happen for a couple hundred years. Like, yeah, technology is advancing, but not that fast. And here we are where AI is literally seeping into everything from churches to families to the nation state. And the effect of that, I think people forget that we are of this community, you guys out there listening, we are very few when it comes to being well versed and knowledgeable about these topics from a sociological and, more importantly, a spiritual perspective, and from a biblical perspective, how to deal with these things ethically and how we might understand some of the scriptures as to where this might be heading. Not to call it a, hey, we're at the end and here we are, we know for a fact, but more so that, hey, a lot of the things written in the Bible, especially eschatologically, seem to point to these elements that are building up or have been building up for the last decade plus. So it's a good reminder that, hey, we were on this topic, we've known about it. And look, we're not the only ones. Obviously, like Elon Musk tweeted out something or retweeted something from 2014 where he said like AI is going to summon demons. I mean, he did it again, I think yesterday or early this morning. So he's somebody that's been talking about this, but he's the kind of guy where we looked at and say, why is he talking about AI? We should pay attention. And it was sort of this circular thing where it's not just us talking crazy. It's like these billionaire types or multimillionaire at the time, maybe types like Elon Musk talking about it. And so it caused us to take a closer look. And lo and behold, here we are on a podcast talking about these issues as they roll out. And we know what's going to happen. We know where it's all headed. Even if it's not in our lifetimes, we seem to know the end game for all of this, which is why I don't think it should trouble us. You know, we talked about the peace that surpasses all understanding last episode. We harped on it, and it's so true. It's so true. If you're really led by the Spirit, this stuff is very obvious. It's like, of course this is going to happen, and we shouldn't be surprised whatsoever. So let me move on here and go through this AI section. This is a little bit different, I guess. We were talking about podcasts, and this is more about podcasting than AI, but I thought I'd drop it here because we are a podcast and we have been going through this interesting crisis when it comes to independent media, an existential crisis. So this is Forbes.com. What makes a podcast interview show worth your time? I'm glad Forbes is informing everybody what makes a worthwhile podcast. Got a few highlights here. Recent podcast failures. So they talk about some failures of some podcast. I think it's important to highlight to let all the listeners who may be new, to let you know that this podcast, Canary Cry Radio, Canary Cry News Talk, and a few others out there, we are the exception. Majority of podcasts fail. And we're blessed to be in that position. But look at this list. Recent podcast failures include 2022's Archetypes. Yeah. Okay. Archetypes with Meghan Markle as the interviewer and host. Add to the list of underperformers. Paris Hilton on This Is Paris. Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen on Renegades. And Rob Lowe on Literally with Rob Lowe. Even late night hosts extraordinaire Stephen Colbert struggled with interviews. So this is quite the list of podcasts that had everything going for them. They got the major advertisers. They got the influencer level, whatever. If you're Paris Hilton, I mean, come on, you got an entire hotel empire behind you, but they're failing. Why? Because nobody cares anymore about this stuff. This stuff, you know, celebrityism in its old form is completely dead. And people think that just because you're a celebrity, you start talking. It's almost bad for them because it takes away the mystique of these people, you know? It's like if you're Paris Hilton, it's like, oh, she's this model and whatever. She starts yapping for hours at a time or interviewing people, and people realize like, wait a minute, this person is not, or maybe not Paris Hilton, maybe Barack Obama or Bruce Springsteen. It's like, I love Bruce Springsteen songs. Hey, what a great guy. And you listen to the podcast and you're like, man, that ruins Born in the USA for me. That ruins all the mystique of Bruce Springsteen for me. I think that happened to a lot of people with a lot of these podcasts. So everyone thought it was a good idea, but it's not for everyone. It really isn't. And they go through some different things here. Let's see. Of course, a primary reason why podcast interview shows are so ubiquitous is the quote dollar store budgets associated with developing a podcast interview show. Okay, putting a microphone in front of someone quasi-famous or worse, an influencer, and having them interview guests who are typically coming on the podcast free of charge is like selling snow shovels during a snowstorm. You can lose money and can potentially earn a windfall. Yeah, okay, all right. So they're really focused on the monetary aspect of this. And most of those podcasts we mentioned earlier, and many others that are probably not mentioned here, the reason why they spun up a podcast is not because they wanted to actually inform the public. It's because they wanted to make a quick buck. And shows like that will fail. If your motivation, if your main purpose for starting a podcast is economic, like I want to make a lot of money, it's going to fail. Or you're going to be such a shill. You're going to be such a shill for something that it's might not be worth your soul, and I think the actual op was very brilliant in this last iteration with the rise of the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and that ilk, right? I guess Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan's been doing it for a long time. I put him in a separate category. He's almost like his own thing. He was early enough in the independent media space to be an outlier and really a pioneer. I mean, people can call him a pioneer in a sense. And of course, there's no agenda podcasts and stuff. But when it comes to some of these big alternative podcasts that got really popular the last couple years, most of them, like we've identified, are ex-CIA, ex-military, ex-whatever, and they have an agenda. And that agenda just so happens to be presented in this sort of, hey, we're going independent, we're pushing back on the mainstream. That narrative bubble allowed them to thrive and become what they are. But will it last? Once they feel a conviction about something like maybe, hey, evangelizing, will they maintain that platform? I think for a lot of people at that level, they will have to maintain it. It's too big of a monster, a cash cow, to just sacrifice it. But it's something where the motivation and the purpose matters a lot more today than before, because people are like us. We're just sitting there on air for so long that, for us, there's not a whole lot to hide. It's like, hey, we're going to wear our emotions and our thoughts on our sleeves. And we can do so because of the producers, right? Because we're value for value, because we're not making money from advertisers or big corporations or lobbyists or whoever. We're not taking any money from cabals or even gangs or whatever, like whatever these people do. We're able to express our opinions. And, I'm curious to think about, or not question, but I am curious how many of our producers disagree with us on many different things, but they support us because they just want to support independent media, like true independent media apart from any corporate entity. And, that's one of those things I'm curious about over time. It's like, I know we've lost many producers over the years because of what we've said or what we believed or what we shared as opinions. And sometimes we get long emails saying we can't support you anymore because of this. And we say, okay, that's your right to do that. We didn't force you to support us in the first place. And that's kind of what it is. But when you come from a corporate world and the advertising world, those things matter much more. And it's like, we're supported you because you're a thing. And now you changed your thing and now we can't support you. And it's like, all right, well, then you weren't really there for the main core message from the beginning anyway. You were there because it was a trend or it was a popular. You thought maybe you can, whatever agendas people have. So, okay, one consequence of that shift, meaning like people are doing interview shows because anyone can spin one up, is that narrative podcasts, which often take time and money to develop and produce, have nearly been abandoned by the large podcast networks. So narrative podcasts, it's like the history podcast. There's other, like the Canary Cry episodes where we're doing like a full production. Those types of podcasts, according to Forbes, are being abandoned. I see it as opportunity. If you are a podcaster or if you're trying to spin up a podcast, not just doing interviews, but doing actual produced shows, I think there's an opportunity there because just because the large podcast networks have abandoned you doesn't mean that you can't actually carve out yourself a niche or a career doing podcasting in that long narrative form. In fact, I think a lot of people prefer that in a way. You know, the history podcast, well, I forget the name of the history podcast. Somebody in the chat would know. There's that one that became really popular with the really long episodes. They only published like 1 or 2 episodes every like 1 month or 2 months. And it was like this whole history narrative that goes through different events and time periods and stuff. But listen to what it says here. As a result, independent podcasters have taken up the mantle of narrative podcasting despite their lack of money and resources. So yes, independent podcasters filling the gap. Netflix has added an array of video interview podcasts, yada, yada, yada. Lots of money being dropped for podcasting. Tool bag. Oh, this is the great part here. They talk about like, how do you become a good interviewer? And most of it is like, you need to listen to the guest. Like that's a recurring suggestion, which is like, just listen to the guest and respond appropriately as if you are part of the audience. And it's like, yeah. What are you doing if you're a podcaster who does interviews and you are interviewing someone and you're not listening to what they're saying or how they're answering a question? What are you doing? So the bar is so low here. And these are the podcasts that are getting hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars thrown at them. It's just pathetic. And then they go into some, analysis of whether video podcasting is appropriate or whatever. It says here for independent podcasts, video can mean a massive outlay of money. Yes, it does cost a little bit to run up a video podcast to go along with an audio podcast. Hey, we know what that's like. It can be done on a pretty budget. Sorry, what's the word? Bootstrap budget, bootstrap budget, but it is tough to run everything. And that's why I have some Jimmy rigs going on. I got a couple different computers running. I have my own system worked out to make it possible. And we're not doing these crazy, studio podcasts. Ours is more just a stream, but it is a little bit more time consuming for setting up. And it requires a little bit more cognitive, what was it? Cognitive energy, whatever they called it there in the AR article, to actually set one up and run it. Nonetheless, let me continue here. This was the nail, or the, stake that drove through my heart. Podcast Hall of Famer Ariel Nissenblatt, on a recent episode of Podcast Weekly Review, talked about the pressure to do video for indie podcasters. Her advice was straightforward. Don't do video because you think you have to. Look at your audience, your topic, your genre, and then decide if it's necessary. Thank you for the suggestion there. Hall of Famer podcaster? There's a podcast Hall of Fame? And of course, we're not on there. I don't care to be on it, but I didn't realize that we've been doing podcasting for so long that there's a podcast Hall of Fame. And all right. And the rest of the article is just more, I don't know, it's just cringe. It's cringe. And it's pretty sad, what podcasting has become. It used to be, and I guess it's true with all kinds of things, it used to be an expression, and it's sort of a rebellion against big corporate media. At all levels. Like even Joe Rogan, if you think about Joe Rogan early on, it wasn't so much that it was like, hey, we're the king of independent media. It was just like, no, he's doing something that's counterculture to mainstream news, mainstream interviews, and he's doing something much more raw. You're sitting down with the guests for 2-3 hours. You're getting a real vibe of what they're like. Some would argue Trump won the 2020 the 2024 elections based on that Joe Rogan interview where he sat down with them for a couple hours, and people got to see what Trump is like when you're sitting with him for 2-3 hours, not these clips and stuff. And so there is value in that, but now there's just so much money being funneled through the corporate system that inevitably the lowest, I guess the rotten fruits, I suppose, are going to reach for that money train. And that's what we're seeing. The result of the money coming into podcasting is causing a lot of people to spin up a podcast. And there's going to be a lot of podcasts in the gravesite. There's already a bunch, but more will continue. And, we are that resilient few. If you're here with us right now, if you're listening to my voice right now, you are part of a community of rare air who saw through the nonsense of the mainstream media, but not only that, found a podcast like ours to maybe not agree with everything, but at least respect the independent thought that goes into it and the analysis of world events that goes into it and everything else. We're not getting our cues from anybody. And that is something that we get to celebrate. And we will continue to celebrate as value for value podcasters and carry on the traditions, especially made by the late John C. Dvorak and Adam Curry, the No Agenda Show. And we're proud to say we're one of the few podcasts who have continued to be able to do this with the value for value model, because even the big podcasts, and you start digging in, it's everything, man. They're doing advertising. They're also doing donations. They're also selling products. They're doing it all. There's certain podcasts out there like this one here.
But what if you're a grifter who needs to sell ads?
Yeah. What if?
But what if you're a grifter who needs to sell ads?
Does Tim Pool have ads on his show? Maybe he does. I don't really listen to Tim Pool. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to that guy, but I know other people do. And yeah, I think maybe he is doing some ads on his podcast, which, hey, people got to do what they got to do. Especially if you spin up a podcast and you get big, you can hire a bunch of people and you have all this money to spread around. But then when the money train stops, you got to figure out other ways to keep that money train going. Because now all of a sudden you're not just trying to keep the podcast going, you're feeding like 4 or 5 families, right? And look, that's just how business works. That's corporate America, if you will, or not necessarily corporate, but capitalistic America in a sense. But that's the kind of position we don't want to be in. It's not an offense to anybody, but that's why we have producers of the show, Time, Talent, Treasure. It's a voluntary thing because we're not going to, and we're depending on God for all of it. We're not depending on the producers to keep things going, although that is, especially the treasure, that is a big part of the lifeblood of the show, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the only thing. We appreciate your prayers. We appreciate your art. We appreciate all kinds of things when it comes to the producership, your time. And we're going to keep doing it. Okay, let's move on here. A couple more stories to go here today. Actually, a good handful more. There's the beast system is rising in New York.
Speaking of the beast system, beast system.
This is coming from Polymarket News, of course. Just in, New York City Mayor Mamdani reveals ID will be required at city-owned grocery stores to prevent non-residents from accessing discounted food. So a couple months ago, Mamdani, who took over the mayor of New York, said that he's going to have this city-owned grocery store, and people were like, it's nonsense. How are you going to do that? Well, apparently it's in the works, and in order to go in there and purchase your groceries, you will have to show ID. And a lot of people are pointing it out. You don't need an ID to vote in New York, but you will need one to access groceries. And of course, I saw a couple jokes on the timeline that I also participated in. It's like, hey, all you need is a sticker of Mamdani on your forehead or your right hand, and you're good to go. You can walk in there anytime you want, buy and sell. It's not just buying groceries at a discounted price. It's actually selling some products too, if you're part of the economy there. And there you go. But and they're just really implementing all the crazy stops there in New York when it comes to the socialistic economic models. and even this required ID situation to buy anything. Now, how does that work, though? I guess, if you have somebody visiting New York, let's just say, like you go visit New York and you're in there and you're hanging out with friends or family or whatever, and you go to the Mamdani grocery store and you're like, I'm kind of thirsty. I just want to pick up a drink or something. Since you're not a New York resident, are you not going to be able to buy things from the store? Or is there like a steep tax or a steep fee if you're from out of town? I mean, maybe that's the way, like a out of town fee. I can see that being a thing. But this is accessing discounted food. So maybe it is that you can't buy it on the discount. But I don't know, it's starting to sound more and more like that Mark of the Beast system, right? Obviously, this isn't worldwide. This is like one little location in New York. But the spirit of it is just so antichrist. It just reeks of antichrist. But if you really sit back and think about the controls here, the weight method that I talked about last week when it comes to archetypalism and the stuff I've been working on in the patreon.com/facelikethesun. This type of story, even though we can kind of have fun about the Mark of the Beast topic, we can call it the Mark of Mamdani and things of that nature. In reality, this falls well short of a Mark of the Beast situation, because nobody's asking people to worship Mamdani to access this. It's not just about the mark, it's about worship. That whole section, Revelation 13, is about worship. So if Mamdani came out and said, if you don't worship me, you cannot buy food at the discounted grocery store, that's maybe something else, like another thing to check off on the list. But as far as this is concerned, there's a practical side to it, of course, but also not a great look. Not a great look, especially if you don't need an ID to vote, but you need an ID to buy food. I mean, the hypocrisy there is a little crazy. So we'll keep an eye on that. Everyone's talking about that today, or in the last couple days, I guess. But let's move on. There's more things here to cover. This one was very interesting as well. This is about eugenics, which if I can get my jingle board to actually, here we go.
We should invite fewer people to be born.
Coming from the DailyMail, we discussed the Georgia Guidestones. It's been coming up a lot in conversation on Canary Cry News Talk the last few episodes for various reasons. We just, I think, had the anniversary of when it was torn down or broken or blown up or whatever. And of course, one of the big reasons why the Georgia Guidestones got so much attention in the last few years is because on one of the stone slabs, it says, reduce human Earth population down to 500 million to have balance with nature. Paraphrase. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but something like that. Well, good news, everybody. They're 8xing the amount. According to Daily Mail, scientists say we need to halve, like cut in half, Earth's population to just 4 billion to save the planet. Diabolical. It might sound like the evil plan of a nefarious villain. Yes, it does, Daily Mail. Good to notice that the scientists saying we need to cut human population on Earth in half sounds like the evil plan of a nefarious villain, because that's exactly what the nefarious or evil plan of nefarious villains have been in movies. I think everyone was posting the who's that character with the Infinity Stones? I forget. But anyway, scientists now say that we need to have Earth's population to save the planet. Over the last 100 years, the world's population has ballooned from less than 2 billion to 8.3 billion people. However, researchers say our planet cannot sustain this explosive growth for much longer. Now, in a proposal that will remind movie fans of Thanos, there he is, Thanos' plot in Avengers Infinity War, scientists argue that the population needs to be, quote unquote, erased down to 4 billion by the year 2200. 100. Erased is crazy. Erased is crazy. Now, if we're critically thinking about this, there is a side of the conversation to be had where the premise is assumed. Presuppositional thinking, okay? What I mean by that is this assumes that the 8 billion people on the planet Earth is an accurate number. In recent years, I guess, that has been questioned. And if you do the math on China, one-child policy for many years, and there's like more males than females right now. How did they actually get more, like a bigger population growth in the last few decades if they were doing the one-child policy? It doesn't make logical sense on a mathematical level, right? Unless, each lady was having 2-3 children with 2-3 different men. But even then, the population isn't necessarily increasing in that regard. The only way it would increase is if everybody had more than a couple children. What is it? Maybe that's where the 2.5, the nuclear family thing comes from, is like a nice steady population growth. But if there is a one-child policy, it should not make sense that China exploded in population. So we have to question the 8 billion people from the get-go. And maybe this is a perfect narrative for scientists to, justify the real number of the Earth's population, which might be closer to 4 billion or something, Where did the other 4 billion people go? Well, they might have never existed. And for us to save face, we're going to have to tell everybody that the reason why the population is cut in half is because we need to save the planet. Okay, so it sounds like Thanos, when he snaps his finger and he, raptures half the world, the universe. However, rather than the instant destruction envisioned in that blockbuster hit, the scientists say this could be managed as a gradual decline. Yes, we shall jab everybody. We shall slowly bring down the population number. We shall make a certain people sterile. They cannot have children. And we will give them robots. And it will slowly go down. The researchers believe that most of the change could be brought about simply by providing women in low-income countries with family planning services. Oh, okay. We all know what that means. Provide women in low-income countries with family planning services. You mean killing babies? Is that what you mean? You mean killing unborn children? I think that's what they mean when they say family planning services. If the global population could be reduced in the next 200 years, this could help ease humanity's burden on the environment and ensure that there are enough resources to go around. Blech. Blech. There are enough resources to go around now. But we're in a K-shaped recovery. There are the haves and the have-nots. And the haves are hoarding things. And the have-nots are being forced into all kinds of crazy labor to get the trickle down, the crumbs of the haves. Right? That's what's going on. So, okay. We have to, I love this, again, this presupposition that we're running out of things in the world. We're running out of this. We're running out of that. I don't think so. I don't think we're running out of resources. We might be running out of, propaganda real estate or something. Like people's minds. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're like, oh, we have a grip on a good 4 billion people. All we need to do is push a button and they'll all keel over. But we need to control more. What do we tell them? We tell them we're running out of things. Think about any economic model that creates FOMO. Now, as a part-time crypto bro, I understand FOMO, which is fear of missing out. And with crypto, there's scarcity. There's only so many NFTs. There's only so many tokens. There's only so many that you can't just produce more and more and more. So it creates this effect of, oh, we need to buy this item or we need to do something real quick to ensure that there's enough to go around for everybody. For example, let's say there's like 10 NFTs in a collection of some kind, and there's like 2 people that own half of those NFTs. There's 5 more left. Well, you can get 5 people to come in, and you'll have 7 people to split up, the amount of 10 of those NFTs. Or you can get 1 more guy in there that buys 5, and then you only get 3 people divvying up whatever, profit comes from those 10 NFTs. So you can create this mentality of like, oh, there's not enough. And each one that survives, well, we want more. And so we need to sustain a lower population so that there's enough for all of us. It's a diabolical psychological tool. In their paper published in the journal Sustainable Development, I thought we got over this. I thought this was all done. Oh, funny. The Sustainable Development link is not working, at least on this. The researchers write, easing to a smaller and sustainable population would not deprive additional billions of life, but instead ensure that when they do arrive, conditions will be good. Another nice euphemistic way to control the narrative. It doesn't mean we're going to kill off anybody. It just means that the ones that are born into a pleasant life, pleasant world with robots and AI childcare services or something. The researchers argue that global population growth presents the world with an impossible problem. They point out that the total impact humans have on the planet is equal to everyone's individual contribution multiplied by the number of people on Earth. With per capita impact in terms of resource consumption and waste production showing no signs of falling, and the only way to prevent humanity's impact from rising is to lower the population. The researchers analyzed the connection between Earth's population and various indicators of sustainability. They found that in the past 50 years, in which the population has doubled, CO2 emissions have more than doubled. The world biodiversity has more than halved, and energy use has tripled. Likewise, at the same time, mineral extraction and pesticide use have more than quadrupled globally. Our collective impact upon the Earth's ecosystem has become overwhelming, unsustainable, scientists write. To make matters worse, current projections suggest that the global population is only going to keep growing in the future. Oh no, more people. This is disastrous. Okay, so all right, 11.4 billion by 2100. This feels like an article straight out of like 2010 or something. Like, it does not seem like a 2026 article, but here we are. They're bringing out the whole we got to reduce population thing again. But don't worry, it's not to 500 million. It's only to 4 billion. We just need to cut it in half. We don't need to kill most of the people. We just need to cut in. And somebody brought up a good point. They're like, okay, well, let's reduce it to 4 billion. Probably 3.5 of those are likely going to be slaves to the 500 million, right? The 500 million are going to be the owners of everything, and then the slave class, maybe even more. Maybe it's even more of a disparity between the haves and the have-nots. But man, this kind of thing, it's nothing new. We're used to it, and they provide different examples, South Korea, whatnot. The experts write, ever-growing wealth and consumption are not ecologically sustainable, and the sooner our societies grapple with this inconvenient truth, the better. Okay, ever-growing wealth and consumption are not ecologically sustainable. What is wealth? Now, as a Christian, we might define wealth differently. We might define wealth as, hey, I have my health, I have my family, I have a roof over my head, I'm blessed. That's wealth, right? Or other people might think, if I don't have 3 private jets and retirement for 50,000 Americans or something, the amount in net worth that can retire 50,000 Americans, then you're not really wealthy. So this idea of ever growing wealth and consumption, it's just interesting because the more the wealth grows in proportionate to the disproportionate few, consumption becomes a problem, not necessarily for them, but for the masses, right? And so the people in control, they can actually control this lever. Pull the lever too much into your direction, you have more people starving. Ease it up a little bit, you have less people starving, you still have plenty, right? This is where the whole Matthew 4, or maybe it's Luke 4, the temptation of Jesus, Satan taking Jesus up to a high mountain, showing him the kingdoms of the world, saying, I will offer this to you if you just bow to me. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. And, basically he says, no. Accepting the kingdoms of the world would mean that you are effectively accepting being a leech upon the weaker people in the world population. Maybe not weaker, it's in terms of physical strength. I'm talking like the lower class. So it's there's a way to be wealthy, I think, and be good. And this is outside of even just Christians. I think obviously Christianity can greatly inform how a wealthy person might handle themselves. But even just from an ethical perspective, and again, a lot of it I would argue is informed from biblical Christianity, but some people may not recognize that. If you are managing your wealth ethically in a certain way, and you're doing things to give back to the community, to give back to people, to build opportunities for people, then you, despite the fact that you may be wealthier, you are at least trying to do things. And this is where the philanthropy stuff comes from, right? The philanthropic society, and they're like, oh, we're going to give back, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. The problem with that is, in a sense, it's like organized public philanthropy. True philanthropy, you're not going to hear about. And maybe it's true that some of these billionaire types, they're doing things to help out certain communities and we don't even hear about it. It's entirely possible. They have enough wealth to be doing that. Maybe there's a little write-off or something. But there's a way to operate in wealth and do it biblically and ethically. There's just not enough of it, in my opinion. And the climb to get to that position it can be very nasty. Climbing over people to get there. But here's the good news, folks. The population needs to be reduced. But there may be, what's killing us right now? Cancer's killing us, right? Infertility, just the cultural sort of, pushback against traditional marriages and stuff. Although in the West, that's having its snapback right now. But we got good news, everybody, because according to the Times of Israel, in world's first, Israeli scientists find active ingredient in Viagra may stop cancer. So look at that. All it takes is a little pill, and not only are you going to stop the spread of cancer, you're going to maybe make some babies. But of course, it is a product, a pill product that is going to allegedly stop the spreading of cancer and maybe promote healthy baby making. So I just thought it was this ironic twist where it's like, oh, they're telling us they need to depopulate the world. Well, cancer's a scam. We need to fight back against cancer, and we need to have more babies as a way to fight the new world order. And Israeli scientists are like, look what we found about Viagra. Just so happens. Researchers say mouse models and data from 5 million health fund members show erectile dysfunction drug and statins, I don't know what the statins, may improve outcomes by blocking cholesterol needed for cells to metastasize, which is how cancer happens there. So great. This is great news for that industry. I mean, you can't make this out. Hey, let's fight cancer and make babies too. Buy our pill. Buy our pill. Can't get away from it, no matter what. All right. Let's see how long have I been going. An hour and 30. Okay. For a last minute solo show, I think we're close to landing the plane here. We got one more story.
It's got to be biblical.
I thought this was very fascinating. The digital crusades Christians infiltrate VR. Infiltrate is a very strong word. Coming from USA Today, here's what it says. The hub of a spaceship was too crowded and chaotic for communication. So Frank Kuligowski motioned his pal to the piece of a nearby corridor. In the distance, the two, both staffers of non-denominational Christian organization Cru, we've talked about Cru before, CRU, spied a female avatar standing alone in the virtual hallway and decided to strike up a chat. In real life, the three were wearing headsets in separate geographic locations around the world, but here in this 3D spacecraft created on the virtual reality platform VR Chat, they were soon engaged in conversation. When Kuligowski of Orlando, Florida, found a chance to mention his Christian faith, the woman, who lived in East Asia, said churches were hard to find there. East Asia. Quote, "There's churches here in VR Chat," Kuligowski told her. "I can take you to one." Ooh, fun. Welcome to virtual reality ministry, where street evangelism and fellowship building merge in digital form. While VR worlds created to mimic Christian churches have occupied such landscapes for some time, organizations like Cru, missionary groups, and a handful of faith leaders nationwide believe the virtual territory beyond those walls can provide fertile ground for spreading Christian gospel worldwide. Few churches are doing this kind of activity, Kuligowski said. This space is new frontier. Now, just to be upfront, I did try to find, I couldn't find the exact contact, but I did find an email to try to get a hold of Kuligowski and try to get him on the show, because we've been in the VR world for a while. I mean, obviously, Basil has been wearing the VR headset and the googly eyes for some time. He's been kidnapped in VR world multiple times. So this is a real thing that we've experienced. We just haven't ventured out into the evangelism type situation. But this is a VR update, in a sense. The Florida-based organization launched in 1951 as Campus Crusades for Christ and is active in 190 countries. Virtual reality, Kuligowski said, gives him and his fellow evangelists the ability to connect with people they wouldn't be able to otherwise. While Cru ambassadors have historically approached students on campuses or asked them to join local clubs, many people are less accessible now, he said. Quote, "There's a lot of brokenness and pain that people experience, and it's harder for them to connect face-to-face," Kuligowski said. But behind the anonymity of an avatar, it could be a dragon or a knight or a cucumber. Oh boy. We found that as we engage people, they start opening up and asking hard questions, end quote. Virtual anonymity breeds honesty. Hello. Not me. I'm not anonymous on the internet, but my co-host, Mr. Googly Eye Man Basil, I think this is what I want to do. I want to present Basil Rosewater to Kuligowski and say, "Behold, an anonymous fellow believer who has maintained his anonymity on the internet with a successful podcast for 14 going on 15 years." I don't know. Take him somewhere. Don't kidnap him, but take him to somewhere where he can evangelize. It says here, it was the summer of 2022. Kuligowski was watching a webinar when a featured pastor spoke about the connections he'd made in virtual reality. At the time, Kuligowski had barely explored the technology. Okay. Quote, I'd maybe put a headset on at the mall for a minute, he said, but I was really inspired and curious. He splurged on a headset at Best Buy. His teenage son helped set it up. Along with other crew staff who were into online gaming, he started entering VR worlds to strike up conversations. The group has visited the platform weekly ever since, sometimes during lunch hours or evenings after work. There are thousands of VR worlds in the metaverse. Oh, this is also a metaverse story. Can't forget that.
Welcome to the Metaverse.
On platforms such as VR Chat and Roblox, while they can be accessed via computer or mobile devices, they're most fully experienced with special headsets. Quote, when you go into VR, you enter a world somebody has created, said Jeffrey Powell, a 28-year-old computer science worker in Eureka, Illinois, a non-crew employee who joined Kuligowski's group soon after it formed. Quote, they had an idea and built it out in 3D. Such worlds can be reality-based or something fantastical or somewhere in the middle. Okay, I thought that this was going to go to the argument for the existence of God. And maybe in those conversations in the evangelism, that's something that they do, because I've argued this before as well, where as we are able to generate and create virtual worlds where there are rules, like when you create a virtual world, you can set the gravity, you can set the lighting, you can set the all kinds of stuff, any metric that some VR maker can do, you can create that environment in the virtual space, and it can actually mimic a real 3D space. So doesn't that suggest that our world right now is even created by a mind that is outside of it? And is that mind God? It is a very simple argument, and it doesn't take a leap to really see it logically. So I thought that's what they were going with the argument, but no, they're not, maybe not in the article. Such worlds can be reality-based or something fantastical or somewhere in the middle. Participants entering VR worlds do so as avatars, characters rooted in cartoon, popular media, anime, or identities that express their interests or how they want to be perceived. As you guys know, my profile pic is of a little pixelated dog. So that's me. Okay, so if you ever see a little cute pixelated dog with a crown running around and very tired eyes, I'm very tired, guys. Very tired doing a lot. I know some people think it's something else, but it's not. I'm just tired, okay? Leave me alone. So that's how I would run around in the metaverse, but that's just me. Everyone has their preference, right? You could be talking to Donald Duck or some anime character, but behind it is a real person who probably got on VR to talk, Powell said. Powell had the technical skill to craft his own avatar, a red-haired, androgynous character sporting religious team t-shirts. He believes many participants enter VR chat seeking escape from life stresses or complications or because they have social anxiety. I can't see. This is why we got to have this guy on. We need to talk to. Oh, well, this is a different guy. I guess this is Powell. Yeah. Okay. So this is a different guy, but I don't know. What would you rather be in the metaverse? A pixelated dog or an androgynous red-haired character with a religious t-shirt? What does the t-shirt say? It says "Fruit of the Spirit." Okay. All right. You got your Fruit of the Spirit t-shirt on in the metaverse, and your red hair and a beanie and, really bright green eyes. I can see, what's really creepy too, though, is like, you walk up to somebody who has this sort of androgynous look. Maybe you expect a female voice, but on the other line, it's like, "Hey, what's up? This is Mr. Powell," coming out of that body. It's always, it's very funny. Or you have like this big buff crazy creature, and they're like, "Hey, I'm 5. I'm online." It's just the internet, man. The internet is just wild. He believes many participants enter VR chat seeking escape from life stresses and complications or because they have social anxiety. The anonymity of avatars allows people to make connections and express themselves freely and without anxiety, he says. So much anxiety in this world. So much. Quote, it's a good environment for finding people who want to be real with you in a way they wouldn't be if you were really there, Powell said. You know, there's something so sad about that. It reflects reality of where we're at today. But think about how sad that is, that the technology and everything has gotten to such a place where people are more willing to spill their beans and have really honest conversations with somebody on the internet they've never met rather than in person. You know, you think about like the Catholic Church and the confessional boxes and stuff. That's one thing. That's pretty personal, even though you're kind of in a box. I get it. But it's a whole nother thing when it's like you can't have a real conversation with somebody in person. You'd rather just do it online. I get it though. I totally understand it. You know, as an older millennial, I understand this sentiment. I think we are the generation that feels it. Quote, they feel safe saying what's on their mind because they might never meet you again. Yeah. It's those people in VR missionaries, those people that VR missionaries try to reach. And Powell has connected with people from all over the world, from Asia, the Middle East, and Northern Europe. What virtual reality offers beyond simple messaging services is a sense of presence, Powell said. Weird word to use there. Quote, even though you're behind this anonymous cartoony avatar, you can see people's body language. They move and talk and express like a person. That builds a closer relationship. Virtual evangelism can draw mixed reactions. The outreach conducted by Kulagowski's group is an informal and part-time enterprise, in contrast to a newer, more official effort spearheaded by Crew's Jesus Film Project sub-ministry, which offers an online toolkit for churches looking to pursue such activities. All right, we'll check out the online toolkit here. Ooh, look at this. Metaverse Ministry Toolkit. All right, I might have to dig into some of this. Find out more. Maybe this is somebody we can talk to. We got James here, Anna's story, Timothy's story. All right. You know, we are on the front lines with a lot of this when it comes to reporting on it. So I think this will be something we can definitely find out more about. All right. This is okay. So this is part of the Jesus Film Project. So it's not necessarily just VR, but important to take a look. Before they begin, Kulagowski, whose avatar is Junpei Iori, a ball cap wearing teenage warrior character from the role-playing video game Persona 3, meets virtually with his team in a pre-selected VR world. The members, Powell in Illinois and others in Florida, Mississippi, and North Carolina, pray together before splitting into small groups and embarking on their missions in whatever worlds they choose. Now look, I'm not against this. This is like, this is Canary Cry right here in a way. You know, it's right up our alley. I kind of dig this. And there's a picture, for those of you who are just listening, there's a photo here of the 8 people and their different avatars. And I mean, it just looks ridiculous, right? It looks silly, but it's the future. It's the cute dystopic future that we are all marching towards very quickly. The evangelists' approaches vary. They read the room. Sometimes they're direct, bringing up faith discussions right away. But mostly, Powell said, they play the long game, looking to make connections before they ever transition to their gospel message, if at all. We try to get to know them first, Powell says. We're not just there to push a message on them and leave. We want to be their friend. Maybe things at work or at home are hard and they can't find hope. So we share, like, this is hope that I have, and is how you can have hope too. I kind of like that. I dig that. Sometimes Kulagowski said it's as simple as asking someone, how are you? And listening to the tone of their reply. Curiosity and compassion can provide more hints, as can a person's avatar or chosen name. I've found that just entering with empathy and paying attention is a huge ministry in and of itself. Occasionally, digital evangelists encounter resistance from others who find it off-putting and don't react kindly. The Antichrist evangelists. Quote, I've always believed it's appropriate to be obnoxious to people who invade your space with the intent to harass you, said a user on video game discussion forum Reset Era in a thread about the topic. And I love this. There's a photo here, a screenshot of an avatar of just a normal human avatar with the hat, and there's a guy with a jacket and stuff. His name is Movie Nights Canoodles 3574, and he's speaking to Slaymeister 3008, who is a he/him, and they are in a Godzilla avatar, and they're both the same size. Godzilla is actually shorter than the human there, and the cap in the speech text part of the Godzilla, Slaymeister 3008, it says, "Yeah, I do that and pray every day." So Godzilla, praying every day, guys. Come on. Are you praying every day? Are you being outprayed by Godzilla or Slaymeister 3008? I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. Others are curious, if not won over. Quote, "I've had a few approach me and had a very long, meaningful conversation with one in furry hideout of all places." Now, I got to hand it to Basil. I am still very sort of skeptical and curiously holding at a distance the whole furry community. But Basil did warn us. He said, don't count out the furry community. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe we put Basil in not just a VR headset with googly eyes, but also a furry of a kangaroo, and we send him off into the wild, into the next furry con, and evangelize. And look, we already send him to Burning Man. Can't be any worse than that. So it's like anything, we've already set the bar. It's like, hey, if you can do Burning Man, you can do Furry Con, okay? All right. Quote, "I'm an atheist, not the shut the weird sick variety. So I had a lot of questions for him, especially him being an American Christian, as the church has been dying a slow death for some time now here in Scotland." Okay. On Reddit, a similar discussion took place under the heading, "Anyone else noticing an influx of Christians?" It's happening. The movement is here. I don't mind not being the first ones to venture out into the metaverse as far as like actual evangelism. I mean, we'll establish a building out in the metaverse as soon as more Christians are there as a little stop post. A little stop. What do they call it? Like not an inn necessarily, but the place where you kind of retool, recalibrate. Have a nice warm meal. Fix your tools, whatever you got to do in the wilderness, in the metaverse. And that's where we can be. The person who posted the thread wrote, quote, "I've been on this game for 5 years and I haven't seen this ever. And now all of a sudden there's Christians who only go into lobbies to tell people to repent and to accept God. And they're not trolling either. They're dead serious. Like, brother, it's VR chat." Yeah, it's VR chat. Freedom of speech. What is your VR metaverse? A totalitarian dictatorship, or is it a libertarian haven? That's what's going to happen. We're going to have different VR landscapes because it's too easy. It's more easier to lock down certain VR metaverses with certain ideologies than it is in the real world, right? I mean, you can have it's kind of like a chat room or something, so people can shut it down and be like, "Oh, you're Christian, you don't belong here," and you can push them out, and then we'll have courtroom cases for religious discrimination. Powell said the crew team rarely gets such blowback because of its gentler approach, though the occasional troll will act up. Quote, "Some are like, 'Oh man, you're just a preacher in VR. What's your agenda?' he said." Quote, "But we don't often get that because by the time we bring up our message, it feels natural. We don't want to make people uncomfortable." While he's passionate about VR outreach, Powell is also an active Christian in real life, part of his church's leadership team. It's good to know. Good to know. Good to know that his virtual life and his real life are matching up. That's a good sign. Quote, "While VR is a way I can express that, it's not what my faith is about," he said. "It's important to be active in your community. You've got to live it out." All right, that's good. I appreciate that. Real life connections, the ultimate goal. The predecessor to today's video world is Second Life, an ongoing virtual environment launched in 2003, which our good friends Derek and Sharon Gilbert. I remember them going into Second Life, not necessarily evangelizing, but they're flying around. They're, going around looking at things, and they've always been pioneers in that regard. I don't know if they've ever shared the gospel. That's something that we can maybe ask them. That would be very interesting. I think that'll be a fascinating thing to consider. Quote, I knew Catholics who were building monasteries and doing adoration in virtual sacraments, said Brett Robinson, professor of theology, media, and rhetoric at the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome. Quote, I found it all very kitsky, and didn't think it would catch on, and it didn't. I didn't think it'd catch on, and it didn't. But just because it doesn't catch on right away doesn't mean it won't become a real thing. He's not surprised to see new efforts reemerging, however, given the technological advances that have since taken place. Such efforts, he said, eclipse old barriers of what religion can be, taking practices long associated with physical artifacts and majestic edifices into the digital realm. And it goes on a little bit more, and it highlights different people. And let's see, there's someone named Bell here. Let me try to find where this Bell individual is. Yeah, it's interesting because it's okay. So Kuligowski said that while virtual connections are valuable, the goal is to get people to connect with real life faith communities wherever they live. Hey, meetups. That's what this is. They're doing the same thing we kind of did. Like, hey, get with your local community. Even though, you found us on the internet, we encourage that local buildup. He recalled speaking with a young person who wasn't feeling well. I said, when I'm ill, I like to pray. I believe in God and he believes in my well-being. A nearby Barbie-like avatar named Belle, B-E-L, so it's like Bale, who'd overheard the exchange approached, Kuligowski said. A friend had said some hurtful things, she said, and she was having a bad day. Kuligowski's words spoke to her. Belle admitted being a fallen away Christian. He encouraged her to begin attending church again, and they traded contact information. While Belle joined the crew group a couple times afterward, quote, she ended up leading her own discussion about Jesus with a group of people in VR chat, Kuligowski said. She was really excited about it. She felt blessed that God had empowered her. And that's how the article ends. So I think we're nearly there. We're close to this era. And given the cultural moment when it comes to Christianity in America, I think this is less crazy or less taboo than it was maybe 10 years ago when we were first discussing this type of thing. With the whole generation growing up on Roblox and Minecraft and all those different games, and I would imagine, I think somebody in the chat tell me, wasn't there a very popular streamer, like gamer streamer, who was preaching the gospel and he got very popular? I forget. There's a lot more of that. It's less like weird now. It's just more common. So whoever remembers that individual, and just in general, I think some of the bigger streamers are not shy about their faith. So I expect more of this type of thing to emerge and become normalized. And what that means for the church will be interesting, because this is sort of the teeth. It's the actual railroad tracks for the network state. It's less, philosophical. The network state idea is less philosophical. Now it's becoming much more tangible in a real way if you are creating virtual spaces and people are publicly evangelizing in open virtual worlds where it is not like a Christian virtual space or virtual chat or something like that. So in that way, there's true evangelism happening, and the location of where you are, although it matters in the sense of like, hey, connect with your local people wherever you live, that certainly matters. But that initial connection, that initial communal aspect doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are. And I always thought the concept of knowledge would increase and people will go to and fro. People talked about airplanes and ships and trains and stuff as part of that, and that's definitely true. People are going to and fro, but I always thought of it as this layer of virtual, where it's not just about where you are. It's not just about being able to travel from point A to point B physically. The people will go to and fro is this virtual space where you can, at the speed of light, you are anywhere, and nowhere at once. I guess if you're talking about, the virtual realm, so to speak. But all right, that's about all I have here for y'all. Let me see. There's a couple things that I needed to do here before we call it an episode. We will properly thank the producers that came in since last Wednesday on the next episode. I think Basil will be, I think he's going home, so he should be home by Wednesday. So we should be good to go by Wednesday. So we have that going. What am I trying to do here? Oh, I'm trying to move something so I can actually present some art, because we got a good handful of art, and we thank the producers who are coming in with their talent. It's another way that you can produce the show. And let's see. Come on, let me get this all squared away here. All right, we're going to start off with thanking, who is it? You know what? I think we need to first do, Sir Darren. I think he had a couple of things that we need to. Yeah. All right. Perfect. I should have shown this earlier during the Mamdani story. But Sir Darren, Knight of the Hungry Panda. He sent this in, the meaning of perception reality. And it's I guess a bluish grayish image. It says think outside the cage in this sort of upside down, backwards, I don't know, coded type of way. And then it says Canary Cry, lifestyle brand, trademarked, which I like. I like that. And it's got some cool blurred style things on the background. And then on the right side of the image is a cover of Time magazine, and at the very top in the tiny letters it says perception is reality, reality is perception, and it's got the Time as like the Time magazine at the top, and it's a blurred picture of Mamdani, and or is his face, and I think it's blurred into somebody else. I can't tell if that's actually Mamdani that's blurred into or if it's Trump or something. And then there's some really, really small text that I cannot read. It says at Basil Rosewater, perception, something or other. It's all blurred out. There's a QR code. Hopefully that's to Canary Cry News Talk or something. And then there's at face like the sun, and then some small text that I can't read. And then the same thing outside the cage thing going on there. So very, very interesting piece of art. Perception is reality. Got to have an ID to buy discounted groceries in Mamdani's New York. Boom, boom. And Sir Darren had a second piece that he sent. And this one was, let me see here. Let me make sure I get the right one. Ah, yes. Basil's shipping container. He's into trains. Ontology is the philosophical study of being, existence, and reality. And he's on this perception is reality campaign here. It's a big shipping, I guess, what are they called? I guess they're called shipping containers, those huge ones. This one's blue, and it's got a big portrait of Basil with his googly eyes, 33 in a fancy way, so it looks like a bird or something, like the 3 and 3 back to back. The same Basil Rosewater and at face like the sun text as the last thing. Maybe I can read this a little bit more. I made several values over the years. I can't read what it says. Characterizing something that Asians. I can't read what it says. I don't know what it says, Sir Darren. Hold on. Let me see if I can really zoom in, and maybe I can. Oh, that's a big Basil face. I made several videos over the years theorizing that aliens could contact us once AI becomes sophisticated enough, or disembodied spirits seeking a physical host comm network. When you start looking at all politics as wizardry or wizard wars between esoteric chants or chase magicians, you'll stress a lot less about the most recent thing that triggers varying groups into a frenzy. Stay grounded, folks. It looks like maybe like an X post I made or something that's on here. All right, so that's the text on that one. Let's see the other one for Basil here. Ooh, that one's much clearer. If I don't follow you like this tweet, I want to follow back people who interact with my stuff. And as always, please retweet and bookmark this so the algos will actually show my tweet to people. Turns out that only about 4% of my followers ever see my posts. It's been hard to stay motivated. So if you can get engagement up and get those algos going, it will feel much less like I'm yelling into the void. Well, yeah, we are yelling into the void. And you got this shipping container. You got Basil's painting up there, big old googly eyes and everything. He's looking very sleek. He's got the Canary Cry pin. He's got Basil's Bunkers pin. He's got the Basil's Bunker sweatshirt. Looking really, really clean. I love it. Thank you very much, Sir Darren. Appreciate another piece of your artwork. You can always tell when it's Sir Darren. He's got this certain style. So thank you for that. All right, we got a couple of them from, or actually one of these is from Jones. Let's see. Yes, I think this one. Oh, okay. Fartwork Bird series, and bird is spelled B-U-R-D. And this is I think this is the right one. Yeah, this is like a Fauci pleading the fifth. And Fauci is kind of this invisible canary version. The only thing that's colored in are his hands. You got the water bottle there. And on his notes on his desk, it says the fifth, the fifth, the fifth, the fifth. And it says out of, and it says, it's about to say contempt, but it's crossed out. And it says out of respect for this court. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, that's the whole Fauci thing and the pleading the fifth over and over and over again. Thank you very much, Jones. Appreciate that. Does Jones have a jingle? I don't think Jones has a jingle for art. Yeah, I don't see it. Let me know if someone wants to make that or if you have one. Great. All right, and then we have one more artwork from Curious Asian Lurker. Fantastic. Glad that you're lurking, Asian, other Asian out there. They said, not sure why, but third art. Hope you guys find the humor. Look, when the Holy Spirit leads, sometimes you have no idea why, okay? It's just one of those things. All right, so this is like a four, let's see, how many cells? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 6-celled cartoon, or I don't know, like animation thing. I don't know. And it says here on the top left, rattle the glass. It's a bird. It's a canary standing there in this nice green little pasture like thing with some trees in the background. And he thinks, rattle the glass cage. Oh, he's in a glass cage outside. Okay, I see what's going on. All right, so this canary is inside of a glass cage. And this canary is thinking, rattle the glass cage. And then next cell. Now the canary's talking. And the canary says, time is an illusion. Something Basil said in a CCR episode. Birds are, and then not is crossed out and it says real. So birds are real. Another something Basil and Gons said somewhere. And as this canary is saying these things, the glass cage is starting to crack. There's some cracks in the glass cage. And then on the third cell, the canary is just, he's screaming out now. Pah! And the glass cage is completely shattering. The cage is breaking. And then in the next one, it's sort of like a surveillance video footage. from the perspective of some kind of surveillance footage because it's got the record live on the top left. And you can see the hand of the button of whoever's looking at this. Warning, do not press red button unless necessary. So somebody is surveilling the canaries who are singing and breaking out of their glass cages. Oh, this one goes deep. And then the next cell is another close-up of a bird or a canary singing and breaking out of these glass cages. And the last image is the bird, is the canary back in the cage, even though it's broken. And they just have 3 dots as thought bubbles. They're not quite sure what happened. They were psyoped back into the broken cage. You know, this is the analogy is so powerful because, you know, we're trying to get people to think outside the cage, and a lot of times people experience that freedom of like, hey, we're outside of the cage. We're no longer being held captive. And then after a while, people are like, well, it was more comfortable in the cage. And even though you can walk out the front door, they go back into the cage. So deep, curious Asian lurker. This is deep. This is very philosophical. It's rich with meaning. I love it. Thank you for the art. Fantastic job. We got one more piece of art today, and it's from Little Owen. And I think if I hit go on this, it's going to start playing the music the way this is set up. I don't know. I can play a part of it here. Let's go ahead and do that. Here's a few seconds. That's all you get right now. I'm going to play the whole thing at the end of the show. Psalm 61 set to music. I love verse 2. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Great verse there. I love Little Owen putting scripture and different things to music. It's really cool. The tone that he's got, the music style, it's all very fantastic. So thank you so much, sir. Or I guess he's not a sir yet. Little Owen for doing the music there. We'll play it at the end of the show. Okay. I think that's it. I think that's an episode. Apologies if it was just another Gons is rambling on for 2 hours thing, but that's what you get when Basil's not here. You get Gons rambling on for 2 hours. It's what happens. It's just part of the program. Okay. It's just how it goes. So hopefully Basil will be back on Wednesday. And I think that's it. Thank you to thank you to all the producers coming in. Sir Darren in the chat here. So glad Gons was able to read his X post with those unassisted non-VR wearing old man eye. Hey, look, okay, my eyes are getting really bad, admittedly. It's getting bad, folks. Like, it's to the point where my son will hand me something and the glasses come off, man. I can't see. I can't read anything. Like, my glasses have to come off if I need to read something or look at something up close. So, hey, you know, it's a thing. So, all right. Thank you, people in the chat. Appreciate you. Appreciate you being here, especially the long timers, people hanging out since Age of Deceit, man. The first one. It's a long time. You know, I realized too, there are people who grew up watching the Face Like the Sun channel or like listening to Canary cry, and they're like full-blown adults now, and they were just like teenagers or even before then, back then. That's wild to me. That's like the Lord's work right there. That's not us. That we're just trying to pump out episodes and staying persistent, and you know, we're on the grind when it comes to that. But of course, not possible without the producers. But it's kind of crazy to think that the people, my own daughter, she's 25 now. She was, she 10 when we started? I think 10 or 9. One of the earliest Canary Cry episodes, you can hear some of my young daughter at the time. I mean, she's still my daughter, but you know, when she was younger, she did the tag for Canary Cry Radio. So I don't know, man. Life is very short. So let's enjoy it and let's be a blessing to each other. And let's just share the gospel, whether you're in the metaverse or you're out in the street. Let's just be the hands and feet of Christ and continue to spread the gospel the best we can. Because all of the topics, you can know everything about the Nephilim, you can know everything about AI and the Zionists and the occult, and you can know all this stuff. But if you're not pointing people to Christ, it's all for naught. Like, honestly, it's all just like garbage knowledge that doesn't mean anything. It only means anything if you can point people to Christ through those discussions. So, okay, there we go. That's it. That's an episode. Thank you, everybody, for being here. What else? Oh, share the show. That's another way that you can help us produce the show is share episodes like this one with friends and family. Just drop him a link, drop him something. What else can you drop? I don't know. A USB. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. USB that has our episodes, our old episodes on it or something. Or maybe print them out as like a book. That would be crazy. I wonder how many pages if we transcribed every single Canary Cry News Talk episode and every single Canary Cry radio episode and turned it into one big tome. I bet it would be a massive, massive book. Maybe somebody could do that. All right. So all you got to do is grab people by the cage that they're in, whether it's glass or, I don't know, felt, cardboard, whatever it may be, and then shake them.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! Don't ever silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
Human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
All right. Just ask Noah. He will tell you all the things you need to know. We'll be back Wednesday, the 5th. Oh, there's nothing on the calendar there either. Hey, but tomorrow's National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. Make yourself a chocolate chip cookie. I'm going to try to make one of those healthy ones, gluten-free, maybe out of smashed bananas or Greek yogurt or something like that. If you have a recipe that actually works, please send it to me and I will use it and let you know how it goes. And if it actually makes chocolate chip cookies, it will make my children very happy. So, all right, there you go. We'll see you next episode. But until then, remember to think outside the cage.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths.
We're all gonna die.
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
The beginning of the rise of the Antichrist.
But what if you're a grifter who needs to sell ads?
We will hunt you down and make you pay.
He's a Satanist from one of the Satanist churches here where they sacrifice babies.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
This is the United States of America, for God's sake.
Hear my cry, oh God. Attend to my prayer. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For thou hast been a shelter for me. in a strong tower from the enemy. I will buy in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in the cover of thy wings. Sailor, thou, O God, hast heard my vows. Thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. Thou wilt prolong the king's life, and his years as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. Oh, prepare mercy and truth, which may preserve him. So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. Thou hast been a shelter for me. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I.
Psyops.
Dang it. I think I was psyoped.
Straight to jail, straight to jail.
Oh. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum.
And a resounding baga flies through the air across the world. Why are you screaming like a wild bird?
Rattle the cage. You have a lot of people screaming randomly. Why don't you shout? It'll be their call out. You have a lot of people screaming randomly.
Go ahead and...
Why don't you shout?
Why are you screaming like a wild bird?
I love the Great Reset. I love the Great Reset.
The deep state and the swamp. Swamp the deep state. Swamp the deep state. So they are going to meet the deep state. What? They like Taylor Swift. The deep state is saving us from Armageddon, they say. Deep state means any government worker. That's the deep state. When we hear deep state, instead of recoiling, we should rally. Deep state. Even though their work is often invisible, it makes our lives better. Thank you, deep state. This is the most magnificent.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Canary cried out,